I've met a lot of friends and I've witnessed a lot of children who are suffering in the world today because of abuse, because their parents um, probably divorced or their parents died, and the children are left and they'll carry a burden on their own. Their life becomes miserable and they've nowhere to turn to. I'm Kathleen, and I'm here to share my story about my own life when I got divorced and I had a son who was very young, and my child became vulnerable because I got married to another man and forgot that I had another son who needed my care. My son was my first child to a failed marriage. I never thought for the second time that there was nothing wrong with me getting married for the second time, because I've always been reminded that a girl child should be married. A girl child's place is in the kitchen. A woman should always be married to have that dignity. But I tell you what, I've always noticed this, and I'm here to really discuss about this and tell you what, it's just a myth. It's not true. It's not your place to be in the kitchen. It's not your place to be a woman who just have to be passive and submissive to everything that is not right to you. You should have a voice as well, as you are a human being. So I'm here to talk about this journey about my son. My husband, the one who got married um, after the first husband and the first marriage had failed, he met me, and I did explain to him that I had a child. He even saw the child. He even cared for the child while we were still courting. He didn't mind. He could get some food for the son. He would get clothes for my son. Everything went on fine. And he promised that he was going to look after my son. Only when we got married and I left to stay with him, my son came to visit one day, and my husband came, found the son was there, very happy to be with me because we had our baby that time. And so my son had come to visit and see the other sister. She was a sister this time. My son was very happy, and he was very happy. But to my surprise, my Romeo refused to see my son, refused my child even to stay another day. My son was told I had to pack my my baby's clothes and get him to leave the following morning. Painful it was, but then I couldn't help it. This was not my place. Of course, I was married now, so I couldn't stay with my child. So I had to send my child away. He was crying when he left. I was also crying when my son left. Very painful indeed, but I couldn't help it. But from that day, I swear, I had this in my mind. I said, if ever this marriage was going to fail again, I was going to take my child and look after him wherever I was going to stay. And definitely, after having my second child with the Romeo, my third child with the Romeo, the marriage just failed and completely. I had to divorce again. So when I divorced this time, I was looking after my children, the three of them, because I realized then that I had to look after my children. But how did I manage to get the other child who was the first one? Because the father had taken him. And my son used to walk from their home to get to the school where he was attending. He was a young boy, and he used to walk every morning, 4 miles each way. He would go 4 miles and come back 4 miles. But one day, unfortunately, as my son was going to school, there was a little stream where he used to cross as he was going to school, and it was raining. And my son, thinking that if he gets late to school, he was going to be beaten. That was the norm. So he tried to cross this stream, which was overflowing, and he was swept away. He was nearly killed in this stream. And some follow the best luck that I can ever be grateful to these people. They picked my son and took him out of the water. He was wet. And my sister, who used to stay in that area, was told that my son was nearly drowning in the stream. And when the news came to me, I swore I was going to get my son from his father, which I did. I went and fought this case in court, and my ex-husband refused even to look after or pay any money towards the upkeep of the child. And I didn't bother. I just said, yes, I'll take my son and I'll look after him. I don't mind. So I took my child after the court proceedings, and I took care of my 4 children. I never even bother again. I never even had any issues at all to look after my children, because that was my prayer, that I would look after my children. I had seen children suffering, being looked after by stepmothers or by stepfathers. I'm sorry to say, there are some stepmothers who are really brilliant. There are some stepdads who are also very good with the other children who are not theirs. They actually look after them properly. But with my son, it wasn't the same. His children from the second marriage, they were going to a good school where there was a bus which would collect them every morning. But my son had to take a walk for 4 miles to go to school, and then another 4 miles to come back home in the evening. And this was a young child of about 6 to 7 years. And you can imagine, he had no say, and there was no one who he could say, oh, I'm tired today, I cannot walk to school. Because he knew then either way he was going to be beaten. Either way, the stepmother probably would tell him he was not going to eat. And when my son came, definitely, he looked so distraught. He was living a miserable life. But this was his dad, and this was his parent, who was supposed to protect the son. He was supposed to be there for his son. But many times we realize, many times these things do happen quite often. Quite often we find children suffering. Quite often we find children being abused. They might not be able to say it at that time. He was too young to remember some of these things, and I've never said anything about it. But I hope one day you will listen to this story, and you will understand that life was terrible at that point. But now he's a grown-up man with his own family. I appreciate him so much, because he does like to take care of his children. He doesn't want to stay away from his children. He is always a father who is hands-on with his children, which I appreciate and thank God for. That my children have grown up to be these brilliant fathers. They have grown up to be caring for their families more than what their fathers did. And I do appreciate them. And so today it was just a question of me talking about my story. When we as women, we always think the only place for us is to be married. Sometimes it doesn't work. You don't have to be validated by someone. You don't have to be told that only if you are married you have got dignity. What if the marriage doesn't work again? You keep yo-yoing, you keep going up and down. You keep being told what to do. So you've got no voice. As a girl child, I want to empower someone today. You would rather stand up for yourself and stand up for your children, because your children matters. Your life matters. You should have a voice. You should choose who to say yes to. You should choose who to say no to, because it's your life. And your children's life matters to you as much as it matters to your husband, the father. But if one of you is not there to take care of the children, it's up to you as a mother to make sure your child has got the proper care, to make sure that your child is looked after properly. And this is my story. I'll share it with you today so that you don't lose hope that everything is going to be on the other side. But definitely there's another day that your child, you can tell a story to your child, and he or she will appreciate you. So thank you very much.